On the last episode of Menace, the Ken story, Ken started working with Hot Boy. He was making it work financially and finally living legally. He was living as a single man for the first time as an adult. All was going well until Mia got pregnant. Consequently, she wanted to explore the idea of being in a relationship. Against his better judgment, Ken moved in with Mia, and they agreed to try. In the short version, Ken realized that Mia was crazy. So crazy that he almost regretted having a baby by her. They were dealing with their own drama, which was amplified by the reemergence of her cousin Black, the same cousin that introduced them while he was in prison. Ken and Mia continue in a cycle of dysfunction until it finally hit the fan during dinner one night. Ken heard Where Do Broken Hearts Go and immediately thought of how different his connections were with Mia and Shalonda, which caused him to realize that he wouldn't ever really love Mia. Long story short, Mia didn't take it well, and in the end, she threatened to take his daughter away. And now, Chapter 23, Trouble, narrated by Shandora Warren. I got my own place after I left. Mia's bark was definitely bigger than her bite. She never stopped me from seeing Kennedy at all. Actually, she was all for it. It turned out that single Mia liked to party. A lot. And where do you think Kennedy ended up while she was partying? As a matter of fact, her son Malik usually ended up with me as well. Mia always tried to play it like Kennedy would be happier if her brother was there with her. But the fact was, Malik's father was locked up, and she didn't have anybody to keep him while she was hanging out. That was cool, though. He had grown on me by that point, and he felt like my son. As for me and Mia, we just made a clean break. I thought I was going to have to do a whole lot of back and forth with her, but she didn't really make it difficult. She would run her mouth when I came to pick Kennedy up, but that was basically it. We didn't really do child support and all that. I just took care of Kennedy and gave Mia what she asked for. I kept thinking, man, I never thought it would be this easy, considering how things had gone during our relationship. I had no idea about the storm that was brewing. I was just getting off work that day. It was a Monday. Mia called me and told me that she needed me to come to the house. It's an emergency. What emergency? I had kept both of the kids the night before and dropped them off at Mom and Pop's in the morning. She couldn't even use her usual, the kids are sick excuse. I ain't got time for this, I said. But she swore it was an emergency, so I agreed to go over there. Just like old times, said Hot Boy. He was referring to the times when Mia used to call and ask me to bring her things, just to make sure I came home. That girl used to put you through it, he said. We both laughed. Little did I know, it was no laughing matter. When I got to Mia's house, she was pacing back and forth. I could immediately tell that she wasn't just trying to get me to come over. There was really something wrong. What's going on? I asked. Mia sat on the couch. She placed her face in the palm of her hands and started rocking back and forth. Suddenly she screamed, "Oh my God!" I went over and snatched her hands away from her face. I yelled, "What's going on, Mia?" I knew I scared her, but she was scaring me too. She needed to start talking, but when she did, I wasn't prepared for what she had to say. Mia broke the floodgates wide open, and I almost wished that I hadn't asked her to say it. She said, "All right, Ken, I'm going to tell you what's been going on, but you got to promise you won't get mad. Black ain't really who you think he is. Like, we ain't really cousins. I met him a long time ago when I was dating one of his cousins. All of them were hustling together. The dude that I was dating ended up getting locked up. He knew he couldn't do nothing for me, so he had Black looking out. Long story short, me and Black ended up hooking up. I got pregnant with Malik, and I wasn't sure if he was Black's or his cousin's. We just decided to assume he was the cousin's baby. He got a life sentence, and he wasn't in a position to question it. And most of the family was in New York, so nobody else was questioning it either. Not long after, Black got locked up too. I was visiting him in prison and sneaking drugs in for him. You came into the picture because Black knew a little bit about your background, and he thought he could get you to run some drugs while you were locked up too. He figured if we hooked up, you'd be more likely to get in on it. It just so happened that you weren't with it, But I liked you, so I kept talking to you. When you got out of prison, I felt like we had built something, so I was trying to see where it could go. When Black came home, he was cool with me and you dealing, but he was focused on us making the money. Of course, that caused all of us to start bumping heads. Not that long ago, he had a complication with his regular guy, so we started dealing with this new dude. I don't know what happened, but something went wrong and Black skipped town with all the money. He ain't say nothing to me, he just left. The dude knows that I was working with Black, so he basically told me I gotta pay him all the money, $25,000, or he's gonna kill me. This is the thing. I've talked to this dude before, and he told me that y'all have some history. I called you because I want to know if you could talk to him. Maybe see if we could work something out. His name is Rob. What the heck? Mia dropped all of that, and she started with, promise me you won't get mad. So the whole time that I was in prison talking to Mia, Black had put her up to it so he could get me to sell for him. I came home, and that girl moved me in with her like we were a family. Then Black came around and she moved him into the house that we lived in together. The whole time, she knew that they not only had a history, but it was entirely possible that he was Malik's father. And even though Mia knew that I was trying to do whatever I could to stay out of prison, she was hustling right under my nose. All the while, I was getting up and working like a slave to pay the bills at the house and to take care of both kids, breaking my back while they were stacking money. And that nigga watched me take care of a child that he knew could be his. He ain't babysit him or nothing. When we needed childcare, I either paid for it or I took them both to mom. But I'd have to be mad about that later. Black and Mia have been working for Rob. Making matters worse, Black had skipped town with $25,000 of Rob's money and left Mia responsible for it. I knew Rob well. He might not have been a lot of things, but he was definitely about his business. He didn't play with his money, and he didn't let anybody else play with it either. My first introduction to Rob was him pistol whipping Pops at our kitchen table because he owed him money. Mia was in big trouble. All right, I said. Ain't no guarantees with this guy, but I know him. Maybe I can get him to work something out with you. Just sit here till I get back. Don't go nowhere, and don't talk to nobody. You've already done enough. I left Mia's house and called Hot Boy. I hadn't talked to Rob in years and I didn't have a number for him. Hot Boy gave me the number, but he sounded skeptical. I hope you ain't getting into nothing crazy, he said. I swore to him that I wasn't, but I knew that I was. Just not what he was thinking. Hot Boy probably thought I was trying to score some drugs. That was the last thing in my mind, but I was still getting into something crazy. I had to do it though. I called Rob and he agreed to meet with me. Surprisingly, he was still in the same spot. Also surprisingly, it was just him. No crew, just Rob. I walked into the living room of the house and I thought about all the memories that I had there. None of them were really good. I felt so disconnected from that place. I realized that I had been really broken during those times and I didn't even know it. I sat down on the couch and got right down to the chase. I said, look, Rob, I know we ain't talked in a long time, but I like to think that ain't no beef between us. I heard about that whole Mia and Black situation. I don't know the specifics, so I ain't gonna get into all that, but you know that wasn't her, right? That dude pulled her into that. She ain't know what she was getting into. I ain't trying to tell you how to run your business. I'm just trying to see if there's something that could be worked out. I mean, seriously, Rob. Rob looked at me and laughed. In that moment, I realized that was one of the things that I really hated about him. He shook his head, then he got right down to the chase. He said, this ain't about me and you or any beef you think we might have. We ain't got no beef. As far as I'm concerned, you went your own way like everybody else did. I ain't got no beef with them either. Otherwise, you know I ain't big on discussing one person's business with another. But I'm gonna do this for one reason and one reason only. I need to make sure you pass this message along. I mean, since you the one that showed up and all. I don't care who pulled who into what. This is a grown man's game. If she wasn't ready, she shouldn't have played. I want my money. Black can come back and give it to me. Mia can find Black and get it from him. They can sell organs to get the money. I don't really care at this point. I just want my money in the agreed upon time. This ain't your business, little man. Pass the message along and stay out of it. Rob was right. It wasn't my business, technically. But let's not act like Mia wasn't my daughter's mother. And if I had to be honest, I didn't like his dismissive tone. I hadn't ever liked it. I met Rob when I was a teenager. There I was standing in front of him as a man in my 30s, and he was still talking to me like I was a little boy, calling me little man. So I decided to take a stand. But at the same time, I was still keeping in mind that I was asking for a favor. But this kinda is my business, Rob. Me is my daughter's mother, so I'm gonna do whatever I can to help her out of this. Like I said, I ain't trying to tell you how to run your business, but you ain't gotta be this guy all the time. Just give me some time and we'll figure out how to get your money. You know I always been a man of my word. Rob arose from the couch and turned towards me. In that moment, I realized that there absolutely were some ill feelings. There was so much tension and distrust between us. I don't know what Rob was thinking, but I knew him well enough to know that he stood up as a defense. He wanted to make sure that he was in a good position to defend himself if he needed to. And when he stood, I stood as well. I had seen him smother a man that he loved with a plastic bag. There was no way that I was going to let him walk behind me. We both stood silently for a few seconds. Then Rob spoke. He said, "There's one thing that I've always said about you, little man. You got heart. You weren't ever afraid to say what was on your mind or to approach something that you didn't like. But you got to understand that it could be an asset or a liability. As it relates to my business, I allowed you to do and say certain things in the past because you were an asset to me. But those days are done. You are nothing to me now. You do nothing for me now. I want you to understand that standing in the way of my business makes you a liability, and you know I don't do well with liabilities. So I'm asking you, in the calmest and most rational way possible, to mind your business because you already had all your ones." And with that, Rob extended his hand with the intent to have me shake it. I didn't shake his hand. I looked at him in the eyes and walked backwards towards the door. I didn't take my eyes off of him the entire time. I drove back with my mind going in a million different directions. What were we gonna do? Rob was right. It was Mia's beef, but I was gonna do whatever I could to help her. Maybe I could holler at Hot Boy. Maybe I could get a loan. I didn't know what we were gonna do, but I knew we had to do something. Rob meant business, and there was no way around it. I got to Mia's house, prepared to tell her that nothing could be done. She had to pay Rob back the money, and she had to pay him back within whatever time frame they discussed. I prepared myself for it all. Mia was going to fall apart, and I was going to have to hold her together. I was prepared to do that. But when I got there, Mia was as calm as can be. I was confused. She was a nervous wreck when I left. For some reason, the only thing I thought to ask was, "Everything okay?" Mia smiled and said, "Yes, I talked to my aunt in North Carolina. She's going to loan me the money." Of course, I had to lie to her. And of course, I had to hear her mouth about it, but none of that matters. She's going to give me the money. I just got to drive down there and get it. I'm going to leave out in the morning and spend a couple of days so it doesn't look like I just came for the money, but it's all taken care of. It was like 100 pounds just got lifted off of me. I hadn't even considered a scenario where Mia was going to be able to come up with the money. Even still, I made sure to clear the details with her. "When are you supposed to pay Rob?" I asked. "Friday, and I'll be back by then," said Mia. "Good deal," I said. We hugged, and I went home. That was Monday. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to follow Shenny Tells a Story on Facebook and Instagram. I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to purchase books by Shandora Warren, they're all available on Amazon in ebook, paperback, and some in hardback formats. Please like and follow this podcast and share it with your friends, family, and frenemies because all relationships matter, even the toxic ones. Thanks so much for helping me to create the world that I want to see. You're welcome. Shine, little girl.